Hello everyone. Today is a truly beautiful day and I went out through the snow across parking lots to the dentist and to collect my hand-built earthenware pottery from the local paint your own pottery studio. So I'm going to tell you the story of how I've made these things over the course of a year, beginning with my earliest creation. So we're going to put some of these newer ones very carefully aside and talk about some of the earlier pieces that I made right until the unwrapping. I hope I don't come to regret any of this, but okay. So I will say that I was largely inspired to start painting pottery watching videos of slip casting and painting. And I love painting in general. I've gotten bisqueware from Dollar Tree and painted and had such a good time painting it. So this is my very first set. Last year I got a coupon and went to try out the Paint Your Own Pottery Studio. And these are both slip cast projects. So these measuring cups were the first project that I did, and this plate was the second. But first let's talk about what the process involves. So these are earthenware. They can't be microwaved. I would have preferred to, of course, work with stoneware, but the first time I'm doing it, I'm really trying things out, and I think the next projects I do will be stoneware. So of course we have a full set of measuring cups. I think I've measured them and they are largely accurate. I spent 4 hours working on them and they kind of have like a garden floral theme. I was really inspired by Shelby Sherritt's videos because they went viral, like mystery molds. Oops, hold on a second. You can gaze at them for a little bit. Okay, so I was inspired by the mystery mold thing and I went to try these. So these are painted using Mayco Stroke and Coat. Let's start with the smallest one. So here what I did was I painted 3 layers of a base color, and then I painted kind of like peonies and tried peonies on top, so it's like 3 coats of the base, 3 coats of each of the decorative flowers, leaves, things like that. I did like a darker color, a middle color, and a lighter color was like I think what it was. So these were definitely painted on really thick. You can feel the thickness and smoothness of them. And then leaves were pretty simple. So the second one here, I tried to do bees and not all the bees came out super well, but a light blue background, some leaves, some daisies, some bees. It's pretty fun to do. It is textured, but not quite as textured as this peony one here. That one really has very thick texture. Here we have a little floral garden. I tried to do like lavender with 2 different kind of working. As you can see here, I'm working with kind of like a variation of colors. So some dark and light, some dark and purple and blue. Working like by layering yellow and purple, like the yellow on top of the purple here, and then trying to do a thin watercolor-like effect. This butterfly came out really pretty, and I do like it being more abstract and painterly. That's how I like to do most of my projects. Even with acrylic paint, I've worked with acrylic paint for a couple of years now. Really enjoyed it. Here we have kind of abstract strawberries with little random dots, strawberry flowers, strawberry leaves, and abstract purple flowers. And I will say I really love, like here we have white, blue, green, and then blue again. I love the color combinations. I love my color choices. Like this sage green is like to die for. But the details on these, I definitely think that I could have done it. Well, it was my first project, but I definitely could have improved. Like if you look really closely, like this leaf is kind of janky. But it looks like when you look at it as a whole, I really love how authentic and pretty they are. So I'm the kind of person who's not going to overanalyze the details. I'm not going to stress about making like every single bee, if it's not working out in the process, then I just keep going with it. And that's something for me. Like I'm an impulsive artist. I'm not someone who like overthinks things too much. And this was entirely designed in the process. I went to the studio. I did not do any thinking prior. Chose the colors, started painting, took 4 hours, and then created the set. And I do love the fact that it was basically something created in the studio with no prior planning. Now this plate, I'm trying to do something a little bit more like, I guess you could say, more like an oil or acrylic landscape painting here. It actually started out, I wanted to do like a lace work, kind of like white on purple on the border. I created the border and the inside, and I wanted to do white and purple, and I was like, my lace painting was just not very detailed. It was really hard to make details because it's Mayco Stroke and Coat. It's really thick. It paints on thick. There are not many fine detailed lines here. For me, that's something I definitely don't. I'm not able to do that yet. But what I did was blend lots of different blues and whites here, like from darker to lighter. Had a lot of fun doing this and created kind of like an Irish landscape because I lived in Ireland for a year. I loved it. So then what can I do to tie this whole piece with the border? I was like, what if I created flowers that overlapped with the border? And I knew that I would be able to do, I don't know what I would call these, kind of like plum blossoms, cherry blossoms. My name in Chinese is basically plum blossom. So they're inspired by, but they're not limited to like the physical characteristics. So I made these open flowers, strokes of darker pink and then white to outline them, really make the contrast pop. And that was fairly easy. Like it wasn't a difficult thing to create these blobs, as you can see here. Dot the inside with blue and black, brown and black. Make some stems, which are not very fine stems, not very detailed, but I do like the big strokes. This landscape's really interesting to look at. There's browns in there, there's yellows in there. I had a lot of fun just experimenting. And Mayco Stroke and Coat, I will say, there's texture and it's very versatile, as you will see in some of these future pieces. So I think the piece that I want to show you that, like, my painting job on it wasn't that fantastic from this latest collection. You can call it that. So let's open this very carefully. This was made just using a slab and then draping it over a plastic oval piece. And then the oval piece, I just shaped the sides up. So I molded it this way, and then I folded the sides over. And there genuinely were a few cracks in the misfiring. Just light surface cracks in the joint, but somehow things came together okay. So I'm glad. I thought this piece was gonna not survive it, but I did a slightly different shade of blue. It's kind of like a moody blue. This is how it turned out. So let's look at the bottom first. I do really love the shade of blue, and I'm wondering, I don't know, like the reaction, because this was hand built, right? So the oval, I carved out. I tried to add on like a ring here, and it didn't work out too well, but that's okay. You get some kind of footer at the bottom. Draped it over, molded this kind of like you would a pie crust, and then of course the misfiring. Then after that I glazed it with, I think, like old lace, was like a creamy white color, and moody blue. And as you can see, the coating on all of these compared to see. Okay, let's compare it with this. Okay, I did 3 coats here. The coating did show a lot of the strokes, but it was more even in this previous plate I did in January compared to this plate. And I wonder if it's because it's a hand built, like the clay reacts differently. All the rest were slip cast. But there's a handmade like quality to it. I don't know why I tried to clean them up best I could, but I guess I need to improve in that so I don't have these extra pieces. But so the painting here, I was inspired by kind of like Delft paintings, and I started doing this flower right here in the middle, a daisy, the little dot 6.6 6 petal flower, and then just strokes the very same leaves that I have done elsewhere. But the difference was I painted it on top of 3 coats of the old lace, and then let me try to find the example I wanted to show you. And then I only painted 1 layer of all the flowers. So for this one, I did 3 layers for most of them here, so they're opaque. This one, I left it 1 layer. And here's something unique I did. I wasn't too happy with how the painting was looking after I was done, to be honest with you. I was not, like, I thought it was very clunky, and there weren't many little details. So we have the big flower, small flower, very large flower, and then kind of like these lavender fern type long leafy things. So maybe we'll call them ferns. So I had these all over, and I had a pattern, and I was just freehanding it completely on the spot. No pre-planning, no sketching, nothing. I like to, I guess I'm a process-oriented person. This is how it turned out. And I wasn't happy with it. So what I did was I put 2 coats of old lace on top of it. And that really, really made it develop a watercolor effect. So it looks like watercolor. It's definitely not as opaque as, it's not this color here. It is much, much lighter, because if you paint only 1 layer of stroke and coat and then you put a slight like white or old lace, which is a creamy white, on top of it, you really see the difference between light strokes and heavy strokes. You get a smooth texture overall, but I don't know, it's so watercolor-like. I would have liked it to be a little less opaque. Like, I would have liked it to fade a little bit more, just for what I was going for. But honestly, can't complain. It's kind of organic, kind of like homemade, but also draws from like classic fancy pottery. And I don't see the crack. Like, the crack has gone. So well done for however they were firing and helping me with my piece. The crack that was somewhat in the corner here just did not affect the final result. Okay. So let's put this aside for a second and talk about the piece that goes together with it that I also used Moody Blue for. And this was the last piece I made with the last of the clay. Ooh, okay. The last of the clay, I found a texture thing that kind of had a gingham texture, and I was like, let's make gingham. So this is the back of it, and this is the front of it. And how I made it was that I built the bottom as a flat piece. I cut out a big rectangle for the sides and joined it. You can see a little bit of my joining work on the inside. Like, I tried to smooth it out, but apparently it's still a little bit, it's fine. It's artistic. The inside isn't the most perfect. And the outside definitely was a little bit rough because I was using a texture roller and also combining. Okay, let's slow this down. So I had the bottom. I slipped and scored. I added the sides. And before adding the sides, I made it into like a textured... I rolled a textured roller onto it, and I had to roll it twice. So this part here and this part here doesn't quite match because I rolled the roller on twice. The roller was this thick, like that. So got the texture all around, and then here was the join, which I turned the join into the front of the t-shirt. And then I rolled 2 of the leftover pieces of clay into the arms. And the thing about the arms or the cup handles, like that, the thing about these cup handles is that it was really hard to get the textured roller onto them. So what I did was I had like a tube, and then I textured a flat piece and I wrapped it around the tube. So it's kind of like a semicircle and flat here. Everything could just be smoother, but you can't really smooth out a textured piece because then you would remove the texture. So I did what I could. And then I added a strip here to be like the button facing, and then I added collar, which now that I'm looking at mugs and how they're actually constructed, I should have thinned this one out. But in any case, we have the texture here, and I wasn't sure how the texture was going to turn out. In the painting process, it took many different coats of basically white, moody blue, and then these parts here were moody blue with white on top. And I cannot describe how happy I am with how the gingham has turned out, because these parts here are so rich and dark, and these parts here have the visual texture of the roller, but they also have the mixed blue and white. It's just incredible to me that the layering that I attempted to do with these glazes was successful. So this was not layered. This was layered, and then this was pure old lace. So like moody blue, old lace, mixture of the two. I just can't look at that. That is exactly what I was going for, and I love it so much because these little sections here there's a story to them. There's also a level of organicness and roughness to this piece. And then I was using the same color, and I didn't think about these two pieces going together, but look at that. You have a plate, and you have a mug, and you can have breakfast. It's a breakfast set. This was not really planned. I didn't plan for them to go together, but now when you put them together, the florals and the gingham in the same color tell a story together. And now I thought of them as separate pieces. I was going to gift them separately, but now it feels like they're friends and they go together, and you need to make scrambled eggs and toast and kidney beans and a continental breakfast and fill your mug up with Earl Grey tea, and then it's one set, and it's just I need to have a breakfast out of the set because I love it so much now. These little buttons were kind of pricked on, everything was slip and score, score and slip, really, because you scored it with a metal piece, and then you press all the edges. You scored it with a metal piece, put the slip there, slap it on, and then work all these to make sure they really combined. And the inside is just pure old lace. But that's something to think about. If you're making a set, you can use different patterns, but if you keep the color story the same, they kind of work together as one set, and that did not occur to me. Okay, so let's talk about a piece that was the first one that I made, and it's kind of different. Everything else I'm doing is textured, and everything else I'm doing is painted in a very painterly way, except maybe this one. This one was textured, and I shaped it and sculpted it, and it really is a sculpture more than it is a practical thing, though it can be, now that I'm looking at it. This is a roti. In Malaysia, we call it roti canai, and we have it. It's a flatbread layered like a croissant with usually margarine, but it should be ghee. So basically butter, clarified butter, layered in this flaky round spiral thing, and then pressed, and it's so fluffy, and these individual layers come apart. It is the most delicious thing, and then you absolutely soak it in curry. So can you imagine making a flatbread that looks like this, and then serving it on top of this, and then having the curry, or putting the curry in here and then eating the curry off of it, and the curry can sit in all these little divots. So how I built this was I got a circle, I think it was. I also built a base for it that's kind of like a slab with a kind of like a rim sculpted out. So it's very organic, very sculpted. You can see some of the score marks here. I don't know why. I think a crack was forming, so I just scored it and made it fit together. And then, I attached it to the bigger piece, and then I started sculpting. What I wanted to get were the spiral lines that you get from the pastry and the fat, and just, it's like a croissant, right? It's like a cross section of a croissant, but made into a flatbread that you eat with curry. And then these burnt marks from browning them. If you look at a real roti, this is what a roti looks like, especially the Malaysian version. And it's all like the shape of it. This part is higher, this part is lower, so I guess the curry will spill out here. Not very practical, but it's like a sculpture. And I chose 3 colors, kind of light beige, dark brown, and I think the color was basketball as the middle color. And I just sponged and painted and dabbed and mixed and tried to paint it as if it were a food sculpture. And this might be the first time roti has ever been made into a sculpture, but there you go. And it is a functional piece, like it's a functional plate. I painted the back. The back doesn't have the texture, but the painting style was similar, kind of like with these brushed on dry glaze to get the speckles. And I love the fact that you have these little burn marks. What happened was that I used a round ball tool and I carved out these craters, but I left kind of like a rim around the craters. So imagine like you're frying a flatbread, and then you get a circle that puffs up, and then it deflates after you cook it. So it puffs up around, and then it deflates, and it's the brownest parts, because the highest parts here, there's a little bit of ridge here. Everything is so textural. And the piece held together really well, even though there were some parts that were thicker than others, because it was overall made with the same thickness. I love this piece. This is a different kind of breakfast, obviously, but I mean, it is breakfast. You're eating a plate. You can eat roti on a plate a roti plate that looks remarkably like roti. I am loving the colors. I'm loving everything about this. So we can do watercolor effects. We can do textured layered effects with Mayco Stroke and Coat. This is not even an ad for Mayco Stroke and Coat. I think that's what most pottery studios use. Very different from like the actual potters that you see on YouTube. Most people use underglazes and then a clear glaze on top. Stroke and Coat's kind of like, I guess, a beginner medium, but there's so much you can do with it. It is so incredibly versatile. Right? You can do realism. You can do watercolor. And I'm going to show you in a little second. Let's save this one for last, because I feel like this was the most stoneware looking piece that I've done in that style. So let's put these away so that we can look at this piece. Now, this was what I didn't mention about my hand building experience was this was my first time ever hand building. I had never worked with raw clay before in my life. I loved sculpting as a child. Play-Doh, it was my thing. Plasticine. I made my own salt dough. I dreamed about buying polymer clay. Like, that was my dream as a kid, because it was too expensive. So what I was going to say is that I really went to the pottery studio, paid for a $75 day pass, $80 with tax, and got 5 pounds of clay, and just, after watching videos of hand building on YouTube, just jumped straight into it with no lessons. This was the second mug that I made this first, so I guess this is the first mug that I sculpted. Again, a slab base. I actually did carve out a little foot, I guess, or whatever this was at the bottom here. I chose to do that. Actually, funny, I thought they were going to write my name on these things. But anyway, this one does have my initials on them. So, I cut out the circle at the bottom. I guess I made it into the foot now that you're looking at it. I made like a long rectangle that I then joined into the vertical part of the cup. And then I randomly tried to pull the cup handles. And now that I'm feeling it, it feels really secure. Like, I'm not sure I've ever seen these cup handles before, but basically you put one finger in and then the bottom one supports it. And I don't know, I guess you could use the bottom one if you maybe this isn't very ergonomic, but you technically can, I guess. The bottom one's just for show. I feel like there are cups that are like this, and that's perfect. Like, there's some support there. I was experimenting, and this shape is what happened. And then I rolled out leaves and put them into like silicone, like you press it into the silicone mold and you pull out the leaves. So I tried different ones. Some designs were too fragile and they kept tearing, and then I just organically started sticking oak leaves and these little fern leaves randomly all over the place, including on the handle. And I knew that I wanted to do something that was fall themed. So when it came to painting it, I decided to go for this deep earthy red, because I feel like that's a beautiful fall color and that would set this mug apart. Oh, another thing to note was that at the studio they were suggesting that I use this pointed like silicone type thing to poke, like just smooth out all the joints. So really all the joints were very, very smooth because they encouraged me to do that. And what I did was I also then painted slip into all the gaps. So in painting this, definitely it was a challenge because I painted the maroon on first and then I did the details. So I tried to get the maroon into all of these crevices, of which there were many, and then I painted on top of them, trying to blend it out. And then I did some maroon on top of these to really bring out the leafy texture, kind of like an antiquing, aging type thing. So you'll see blends of colors. So really trying to go for something very organic. I feel like this is like an elven mug, but also a very fall mug. One thing that I did have time to do is I added a little detail into the center here where there's a flower, but the flower is also two-toned. I did this shade of pink and then I did the maroon as a glaze on top of that. I think it was white, when you put things into the crevices and then you wipe it off. That's what I did in the middle, and that turned out super well. So you've got sage green, a little antique textured little flower at the bottom, and then all these leaves just twisting and turning around it. Oh, I just love it so much. Like, I know that like there's a little mistake here. I don't know how that happened. A little knob of clay. It's not perfect. It's so incredibly hand sculpted, like literally sculpted by hand. And sometimes I had to vein the leaves myself if the veining didn't come out clear enough. As you can see, this one is clearer than this one. And yeah, this color combination just really has me. I love moody colors. There's something about moody colors that's so appealing. All right, so this final piece, I also used kind of like the press into the mold method. They gave me so many different fun tools to work with. I also used a circle to cut. All right, let's start at the bottom. So it is a plate. Let's be very careful with this. We don't want any accidents to happen in this video. This pottery is fragile. Stuck. So I started with a circle and I molded the circle around a smaller circle so that I would get that hanging effect. But you notice the hanging isn't like even on all sides. Some parts are higher and some parts are lower, and that's okay. I was going for that, and I did carve out, or I did create rings. I don't remember what I did to create some kind of foot here. So it's very sculpted. Anyway, turn it over. Let's look at the daisy, or actually it's a sunflower. And now upon finally, looking at this, I realized that this makes a breakfast set too, because can you imagine this being the special breakfast set that you take out in the fall to celebrate fall with? the colors go so well. They're two different things. One is a leaf and one's a sunflower. But because I use the same color palette, the same color story, they speak to each other. And I love that about this set. Like, this is a breakfast set. This is meant for indulging in breakfast with. So let me tell you a little bit about how I painted this. The construction was simple. So a circle draped over a smaller inside circle to create like a plate. And then I used a press with 4 leaves at a time, because I was shaping these leaves one by one by hand at first, and I was like, I cannot do this will take too long. So I found this thing where you pressed the shape in and you pulled out 4 petals at a time. Petals. I was shaping each petal one by one, and I found this thing where I could do 4 at a go, though somehow one of them would always end up broken. But you know what, that adds to the texture of the piece. The fact that some parts are higher and some parts are lower also gives it this organic flow to it. And then I smoothed it out on the inside, and I also slip and smoothed it out here at the rim here, at the joint. So you have the sunflower petals. The petals were easy to paint in that I pretty much just I tried to age it at the beginning. I was like, well, I'm building up this bright orange color. Canary yellow, I think was what it's called, or dandelion. A deep, warm yellow. And then I decided, color theory. What contrasts with yellow the most? Purple. That's why the bottom is purple. But I also used purple on all of these little pieces here, and I used it on to bring out, like, to give an antique feel to the veins. And then later, as I created the center, I brought some of the colors from the center, like the maroon, up. So the purple kind of aged these parts of the petal, and then I used a lot of maroon purple, dustings of little sponge dustings of green and brown on the petals to really, really amplify variation and contrast in the color. Now the center of this, like, you think of a sunflower, a center has a lot of like texture. I built this flat because then it can be used as a plate, but how do I bring that texture back into it? And I found this sponge dotting tool, and so all I did was just dot. I started with maroon, I dotted sage green and brown and some dark brown and some like different colors. So the sponge, and then drawing the sponge over all of this, and then wiping it off, and then working with layering and antiquing the outside. All of this created kind of like the effect that you would get making stoneware and stoneware glazes that organically do that, except you're the one bringing in the variation and organicness. And I love that. I love the clear dots. I love the aging and kind of smeared and busyness of the petals. So these two go together. So yeah, all in all, I think I have way too many plates at this point. But so I've got 2 breakfast sets. I've got my roti plate. I've got my measuring cups. I gotta bring the microphone away because this is all taking up a lot of space. And then my painterly plate. And the reason why I chose this plate was because I wanted to paint. I wanted a canvas. So if you notice, the things that I did in this recent hand building thing were not as painterly as like some of my earlier things. But honestly, I had 4 pieces to do. Like, I wasn't going to spend the one thing that I did paint I wasn't as happy with, and ended up texturizing in anyway. But so here is an overview of the things that you can do with the Mayco Stroke and Coat, whether you're doing slip casting or painting bisqueware, I think it's called. Whether you're glazing bisqueware or whether you are doing hand building. It does seem like it comes out differently. But you can do flowers like these that are kind of textured, really thickly painted on, and the things aren't going to disappear. You can layer colors. You can do kind of like a portrait landscape thing. You can do realistic food. You can do stoneware, like, you know, messy, speckled looking things. You can do kind of like antiquing textures. You can layer different colors, even two different colors, and get effects. So many beautiful things you can do, so many choices, especially if your local paint your own pottery studio has like a ton of colors, and they definitely had like 30 colors to choose from. I always went for the moody, like instead of, you know, straight up green, I would go for sage green. Like these things are a matter of personal choice, and you can mix the colors, you can layer them in so many awesome ways. I'm looking forward to building my skills in ceramic art, but this is definitely like addictive. You see the results. Thankfully, no cracks. Like, I thought I saw a teeny little crack in this one at one point, and it was just where a leaf was, so I was like, maybe the leaf will hold together. Well, the crack didn't show up in the final firing, so don't be afraid to be experimental. Don't be afraid to like sculpt random textures with hand building, or roll on different textures. Explore. Like, it doesn't have to be symmetrical. It can be completely like rough shaped and organic. Obviously there's a big difference from like the slip cast perfect plate and some of the plates that I have made, but yeah, if this video serves any purpose, it's just like, go and play and have fun. You can have a design in mind. You can have things that you want to make and ideas for what you want to do with those things. Or you can just go to the studio and have a good time, and then see your work kind of evolve over the course of, like, I guess 3 different projects, because these 2 were 2 different sessions, and all of these came from the same 2 session pass. So the hand building was 1 day, I waited 2 weeks, and then the glazing and firing came after that. Yeah, I want to learn more. I'm less kind of intimidated now, and I love the opportunity to just sit there and like, it does help with stress. It's so zen, as they call it, so peaceful, sitting in a quiet, bright studio with other people. Everyone's just painting away and working on their own projects, and all of these came out of 5 pounds of clay. I made 2 humongous mugs and 3 medium-sized, small-sized plates for 5 pounds of earthenware clay. Thanks for watching, and I hope to share more art projects with you in the future.